There is a right way and a wrong way to talk to and communicate with a woman who is in labor. And probably anybody who's been in labor knows that that is true. But maybe you don't know how to communicate it to someone, or even why you need things to be communicated to you in a certain way. This goes for anybody, whether it's medical personnel, doulas, midwives, husbands, family members. If you want to be a real support to that woman who is in labor, it is important to understand how to communicate with her and why it matters so much. There's a common saying that women in labor will never forget how they were made to feel. And that is 100% the truth. We remember how we feel in labor maybe more than a lot of the other details. And so the way you talk to her is going to influence how she feels. So I just want to give you a couple things that I believe can have a great impact in supporting her. So first of all, you don't want to ask her questions that require much thought or engage in conversation that requires much thought. And this is probably more so the further labor progresses, so that she can kind of get in that zone and stay in that zone. But there's a reason for that. And it has to do with the brain, the part of the brain that governs birth versus the part that doesn't. So the neocortex is the part of the brain that is responsible for thinking, reasoning, analyzing, conversation, like deep thought, those kind of things. However, that is not the same part of the brain that governs birth. And so we actually want to reduce stimulation to the neocortex so that the area of the brain that does govern birth can do so more effectively. So it's not that you can't talk to her at all or ask her any questions, but what I try to do is ask yes or no questions, not open questions where she has to really think to answer. But if I need to ask her something, make it to where she can say yes or no. I also have another video on why labor slows or stalls, where I talk a little bit more about the way the brain functions. And so you can check that out. I'm sure that will help you as well. The next thing is speak the truth in love. So you don't want to hide things that you think she won't like to hear because you're afraid of how it will affect her maybe. But also you don't want to offer unnecessary information that does nothing but disturb her. And so it is about finding a balance. For example, don't lie to her about what an internal monitor is if you are suggesting it or pushing for it. Don't call it a clip or a sticker. That's not being honest with her. But you also don't have to present the truth in a fear-inducing way either. I attended a birth last year in a hospital, and it was what I would call only the second really good hospital birth that I have attended. And I'll get into that some other time, what that means, good hospital birth. But what was really awesome here was it was actually a midwife in a hospital, but she was so good at any time that an intervention needed to happen, because this was actually an induction. And it was a very slow, gentle induction. But any time that anything was done, she would explain everything to this mother. She actually showed her the tools and equipment. Like, for example, when they, needed to use the bulb, or they needed to break her water or anything like this. And there were valid reasons for it. And she would tell her, this is what it's going to do, like every detail, so that she's not in the dark and like, what's happening to me? What are you doing? And then I've been at other births where it was the exact opposite. And if I had not been there, the doctor would have just gone ahead and done some things without the mom having a clue what she just did. And it was exactly with internal monitoring, not being open and transparent about what that actually was, not even asking for consent. And that brings me to the next point. You must ask for permission or consent for anything that you want to do to her or for her. And it's always good as doulas, as, a husband or whoever's going to be there, to talk about some of these things beforehand, because you don't want to be like flooding her with questions constantly, like not knowing what she wants beforehand. But her mere presence at whatever location she chose to give birth, that does not equal automatic consent to everything. And I've also done a video on consent versus choice and what the difference is. Check that out. That'll help you a lot. So you don't just say, we're going to do XYZ. No, you ask, may we? Is it okay if we? And this is something that, in general, I have found that midwives typically practice better and are more aware of, even, in taking vitals, in listening to baby's heart tones, that they always approach it with I'm going to ask for consent first. But even for others in the room who are not medical personnel, we don't want to just assume things. And so we try to have these conversations beforehand as much as we can about what do you like, what do you not like, what do you think is going to help you the most. But one thing you have to remember is that even though she said beforehand she, wanted certain things or didn't want certain things or thought certain things would be most helpful to her, that she would like most, when she's in the moment, she might feel differently about it. And that's okay. But we have to be in tune and we can't just assume. For example, she may think she would like a lot of hands-on support, like hip squeezes or massage or counter pressure. But once she's in the moment, she may feel like, don't touch me. Or it might be vice versa. She might not normally be a touchy-feely person and might think that she probably won't want much of that. But then once she's there, she might be longing for comforting touch. And so we have to put aside our own preconceived ideas sometimes of what we think would be helpful and what we maybe would find helpful ourselves, and really tune into her needs in the moment. We want to be adaptive and attentive to actual needs and not just assumption or based on what we would want or what we would think is necessary. And so, yes, we do want to ask questions when we need to. We want to have these conversations beforehand so that we don't have to ask too many questions during labor. And just be tuned in, ask for permission when you need to, and treat her with respect and honor so that she can come away from that feeling so loved that when she thinks back on how she was made to feel, as I mentioned in the beginning, that she can only look back with fond memories, knowing that the people around her really loved her to the best of their ability and truly supported her in the way that she needed. I hope this has helped you. Let me know how the way you were talked to in labor affected you, either for good or not so good, because we can all learn from it, and that's what we're here for.